Okay, what's up? You talking back another video, and we're gonna be coming from these books right here that I have before you: the Cherokees, Native American Mythology, the incredible story of the founding of California by genocide on its native people, and this book right here, entitled "Blood at the Root: A Racial Cleansing in America" by Patrick Phillips. Okay, and this book right here goes into what happened in Oscarville, right, in Lake Lanier, and how these white people drove black folks out of there. Okay, so like I said, if you can go to my GoFundMe page and support me. Right, right now I only have 2 donors so far. I raised $50. Right, I'm quite sure we can get these numbers up because these books cost money. Right, but anyway, let's keep on. Let's get into this. Okay, so when we go here to Native American mythology, and if I have to make 2 parts of this, I will. So it says this is the Cherokee account of how the world was created. It's an example of what folklorists call an earth diver myth. In these types of myths, a creature or being dives down into the primordial waters and brings up a substance that is then transformed into land, which sets the process of creation in motion. The earth diver in the myths of some tribes is a turtle, while in others it is a muskrat or a water bird. The Cherokee earth diver is a water beetle who goes on a quest on behalf of the other creatures to bring up the bit of mud that becomes the earth. Okay, now check this out. Listen to this. It says here, whereas in European creation myths, a deity or group of deities create the world by the exercise of their power or will. You hear that? So this is saying, whereas in European creation myths, a deity or group of deities, this is in your Bible. When it says God created the heavens and the earth, or the Elohim, this is European mythology. It says, in the Cherokee account, the process of creation is begun by the creatures themselves. Insects, animals, and birds all work in concert with the great spirits to shape the world and bring it to life, including correcting the great spirit's mistake of having placed the sun too close to the ground, things of that nature. So you see what I just read to you. Okay, and then when we keep on going, when we go here, 1 second. When we go here to page 7, the Yuma, in the Yuma mythology, it says the creation myth of Yuma people of Arizona is very different from the Cherokee story. In the Yuma account, the creator is a supernatural dual being having good and evil aspects. This being arises out of the primordial waters in its good aspect first, and when the evil aspect tries to rise, the good aspect ensures that it is blinded in order to limit its power. Now listen to this. One second. I'm bringing out sources, books. 1 second. It goes on to say here that this version of the myth was collected after the event of Europeans into Yuma territory. The Yuma creation not only explains how people came to be, but also attributes the creation of separate cultures to Kokomat, the All-Father, who was the primary creator of the world. Once the Yuma encountered white people, they apparently thought it necessary to incorporate them into their creation myth. What the Yuma have to say about Europeans is not flattering, and considering the history of the behavior of whites towards indigenous peoples, This is neither surprising nor unreasonable. The white people that figure in this story are painted as selfish, greedy, vain, and petulant, and as interlopers, unfit for survival in the desert environment that the Yuma inhabits. The environment for which the Yuma believe they were specially made by Kokomot. You see that? In the very beginning, the only thing in existence was water. The sky had not yet been made. The earth had not yet been made. There were no plants or animals or fish or people. You see that? Now, we're going to go here to this book right here, the Cherokees. Okay? And we're going to go right here. I'm going to go right here. Alright. It's on page 8 in the book called The Cherokees. I'm going to go right here. It says, so how exactly did Europeans justify colonizing the New World? The answer lies here. It says to dominate and conquer the world. The doctrine of discovery was created by Pope Alexander VI way back in 1493. This doctrine was a group of 15th century papal bulls, which means decrees or charters issued by a pope. It decreed that all non-Christians, well, let's keep it real, all non-white people, that all non-white people's land was, quote, empty land. This international law dictated that non-Christians or non-white people were abnormal, barbarous, and subhuman. This granted all Christians or white people, especially missionaries and those who wished to convert, the rights and ability to conquer all land and all peoples in the name of Christianity, or let's keep it real, in the name of white supremacy. Quote, among other works well pleasing to the divine majesty and cherished of our hearts, this assuredly ranks highest, that in our times, especially the Catholic faith and the Christian religion, be exalted and be everywhere increased and spread, that the health of souls be cared for, and that the barbarous nations be overthrown and brought to the faith itself. This is Pope Alexander VI in 1493. Okay? Now, if you read this book, these white folks broke every treaty that you can think of. Every law that you can think of. This book is deep. They broke every treaty. They done got away with murder, rape, pillaging, anything you can think of. They broke all them treaties. Like here, it says this is the Chickasaw Shawnee. This is the Indian tribal person. It says, quote, when a white army battles Indians and wins, it is called a great victory. But if they lose, it is called a massacre. Now we're gonna go put this to the side. I'm giving you the books to read, right? Now, let's go here to this book right here. I'm going to post in my description box. You can check out a video. It's called Lake Lanier, Oscarville, on what happened to those people. So you see all these white people, and you're going to see what happened. So like right here, it's in an introduction. It says, Forsyth County, Georgia, at the turn of the 20th century was home to a large African American, or we already know that the African Americans are the Native Americans. We are the Native American Indians. Community that included ministers and teachers, farmers and field hands, tradesmen, servants, and children. Many black residents were poor sharecroppers, but others owned their own farm and the land on which they founded the country's thriving black churches. But then in September of 1912, 3 young black laborers were accused of raping and murdering a white girl. Soon, bands of white, quote, night riders launched a coordinated campaign of arson and terror, driving all 1,098 black citizens out of the county. In the wake of the expulsions, white harvested the crops and took over the livestock of their former neighbors, and quietly laid claim to, quote, abandoned land. The charred ruins of homes and churches disappeared into the weeds until the people and places of black Forsyth were forgotten, as locals kept Forsyth, quote, all white, well into the 1990s. Blood at the Root is a sweeping American tale that spans the Cherokee removals of the 1830s and the hope and promise of Reconstruction and the crushing injustice of Forsyth racial cleansing. You see that? So this is the author right here. So let's go right here. And also there's a book I want you to check out. It's entitled, I have it. I just didn't bring it with me today. It's called American Holocaust. Right here. American Holocaust. So we're going to go right here to chapter 5, A Straw in the Whirlwind, right? And this is in the book called Blood at the Root. Blood at the Root, a racial cleansing in America. Now listen to this. This shit pissed me off. And look at this. This is a hanging, the lynching of Laura Nelson in 1911, right? So let's go right here. Let's read this real quick. So it says here, but despite all the rumors, most black residents were too busy trying to protect their families to think about retaliation. Like African Americans all over the Jim Crow South, they understood that even the mildest forms of resistance or the faintest hint of protest could trigger a new wave of white violence. Many would have heard about the black woman in Oklahoma, who in 1911 had been killed for no crime other than defending her 15-year-old son against a lynch mob. Newspapers reported that when Laura Nelson, this woman right here, Laura Nelson, newspaper reported that when Laura Nelson confronted the white man who had accused her boy of stealing, Nelson was dragged from her house and repeatedly raped before she and her son she tried to protect were hanged side by side from a bridge over the Canadian River. If anyone in Forsyth's black community thought of publicly naming the leaders of the mob that had killed Edwards, they would have understood the terrible risk. Listen to this. Only a few years later, in 1918, a pregnant woman named Mary Turner would be killed in Lonsdale County, Georgia, for having openly grieved for her husband Hayes. When she threatened to swear out warrants against the men who had abducted and lynched him, the response was swift and savage, even by the standards of Jim Crow Georgia. Listen to this. According to historian Philip Dre, it says, quote, before a crowd that included women and children, Mary was stripped, hung upside down by the ankles, soaked with gasoline, and roasted to death. Listen to this. In the midst of this torment, a white man opened her swollen belly with a hunting knife, and her infant fell to the ground. gave a cry, and was stumped to death. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? This woman, Mary Turner, was stripped. She was stripped bare naked, hung upside down by the ankles, soaked with gasoline, and roasted to death. In the midst of this torment, a white man opened her belly with a hunting knife, and her baby fell to the ground, and it was crying, and was stumped to death. Now, where in history could we find a group of people who does that, or who did that? We'll be going to this book right here, The Incredible Story of the Founding of California by Genocide on its native people. We're gonna go right here. We're gonna go right here to the Jesuit Oath, the Counter-Reformation War. This is what they say. I furthermore promise and declare that I will, when opportunity presents, make and wage relentless war, secretly or openly, against all heretics, Protestants and liberals, as I am directed to do, to extirpate and exterminate them from the face of the whole earth. And I will spare neither age, sex, or condition. Listen to this. And that I will hang, waste, boil, flay or beat, strangle, and bury alive these infamous heretics, rip up